Well, hello everyone and welcome back to Vickie's Country Home, and today I'm gonna make some lemon ginger marmalade and can it up. I love marmalade. Either you love it or you hate it. I love it tart. I love it. Oh, it's just so good. So today, lemon ginger marmalade. Let's get started. Okay. To get started, you're going to need 1.5 to 2 pounds of lemons. That says it's 6 to 8 medium. For me, this is 2 pounds and it's 6 lemons. One is kind of large, but that's what I have. You're going to need 1/2 cup of finely chopped peeled ginger and 1 package of powdered pectin, and 6.5 cups of granulated sugar. And it sounds like a lot, and it is, but remember, we're working with lemons and with ginger. So this one, you need the sweet. So the first thing you're gonna do is start peeling these lemons, and you wanna go as shallow as you can because you don't want the white pith. So let me see if I can zoom in a little bit for you. That might be a little better. So you're gonna peel this very thin, and it'll take a few minutes because you're taking the time to avoid that bitter pith, the white part. And you want to wash these very well. Preferably get organic, but even if not, you really want to wash them well in case there was any pesticides or anything used. You just don't want that in your marmalade. So let me get all these peeled and then I'll bring you back for the next step. Alright, I've got all of these peeled, and it doesn't look like much, but that's going to be plenty. So now what we're going to do is we're going to slice these really thin, and we're going to do them on an angle because we want thin strips. So very thin cuts. And this is what you're looking for. Just thin little strips. And if you've ever had marmalade, you'll recognize that. That's just what gives marmalade its wonderful texture. So I'm going to go through and get all of these sliced up. And this is a bit of work, but I just like to remind myself that I'm going to be able to have this little bit of sunshine all year long for this one amount of work. So let me get these all sliced up and we'll go to the next step. Alright, so I have all of those peels sliced up into thin little strips. Now I'm going to put these in a pot. And the next step is I'm going to peel and mince up ginger, and I need about 1/2 cup. So if you're not familiar with peeling ginger, get a spoon, and it's so simple. This is much better and faster than trying to do this with a knife or vegetable peeler. And there's a lot less waste. Besides that, they're just weird shapes, so trying to get around all these parts is a lot more difficult. But doing it this way is Actually pretty quick. So I'm going to get this peeled and minced, and again I need half a cup of that, so I'll bring you back in a little bit. Alright, I've got a half a cup of minced ginger, and I'm going to add that to the slices of lemon peels. Okay, now we need to get the flesh of the lemons. So we're going to cut off each end and cut off till you can see the pulp. And then we're going to just take a knife and go around the outside, and we want to take off as much of the white pith as we can. And then just clean up any that you miss. I'm going to turn it upside down. I think will work better. And I would tell anybody, if you're just really starting out cooking, the one thing you want to invest in is get the best knives that you can afford. Even if you buy one at a time, because it's going to be so worth it to you. And I would suggest going to a store that carries the better brands and picking them up and seeing how they feel, because they all have a different feel. What's right for me might not be right for you. So now we're just going to take and section these out. And get as much of the membrane as you can. If you miss a little bit, that's okay. But you want to get as much as you can, because you're really just looking for the flesh of the lemon. You don't want seeds, you don't want membranes. So you just go through and take all that out. So let me get the rest of these done and I'll bring you back again. So here's another little tip for separating out these segments. Make sure you've got the outer skin peeled pretty well. You want to get as much of the membrane and pith off the outside as you can. Then what you're going to do is go just beside the membrane on one segment and get the first one out. But then on the second one, go skip over this membrane and go to this one. And then you're going to use your knife to just kind of scrape it off. And that's why you need to get as much pith off as you can from the outside. And you can also see pretty easily where the seeds are, so you can remove them. But this just makes very nice segments. And we're going to be cutting these segments up for the marmalade. But if you're using them for a salad or something like that, oranges, whatever, this is just a good way to do it. It makes really nice segments, and look at that. They're just all coming off really nice. But the key is to get that outside scraped down pretty well so that you don't have anything on the outer part holding it together. But see, it just peels right off. And it's pretty quick to do. I don't know that it's any faster than the other way, but it does make pretty segments. Okay, once you've got these all segmented, go through as you process them and make sure you've gotten all the seeds. So you're going to slice these maybe 1/4 inch thick. And we're looking for about 1.5 cups of the lemon itself. And the lemon peel, you're hoping for around 1 cup. So that just gives you a guideline, but I start out with the weights and the number. And see, seeds hide in there, so be sure and get all those out. You don't want that in there. So I'm going to get all these sliced up, and then they will get added to the pot also. Alright, so I have my minced ginger. I have my lemon peel that's finely sliced. I'm going to add the lemon slices that I've sliced up. And now I'm going to add 2 cups of water. Okay, I'm going to take this over to the range and I'm going to put it on high heat, and I want to bring it to a boil, medium-high heat, and bring it to a boil. And then once it comes to a boil, I'm going to take it down to a simmer. And then I'm going to cook it until this lemon zest, the peel, is nice and tender and starts to break down. So let me take it over there. Alright, it's just coming to a simmer. I wish you could smell this. I love lemon and ginger together. They're just, they go together perfectly. So once you get it to where it's just starting to boil and it's almost there, at that point you're going to adjust the heat to keep it at just at a simmer. Okay, now I'm going to turn this down just a touch. And we're going to let this simmer until the zest, the yellow part, starts to break down and get really tender. And it says it'll take 6 to 8 minutes. Okay, you can see it's really broken down and they're really getting soft and change color a little bit. So now what we're going to do is we are going to whisk the pectin into this. So pour it in, and then we're going to whisk it in pretty quickly and make sure it's completely dissolved. And once you've got that done, then we're going to start adding the sugar. And this is 6.5 cups. Now, I want you to see, this is an 8-cup container, and I don't think you can see it well. But it's probably reading about 7 cups, because this is liquid measure. But if you use a dry measure, you're going to see a big difference. So I'm going to put in 6.5 cups. So if you can see, that 8-cup measure that was nearly up to 8 cups actually held 6.5 cups of dry measure. And this is raw, organic, pure cane sugar that I use, so that's why it's kind of brownish in color. Now I'm going to turn the heat up, and I'm going to bring it to a boil while I stir it constantly, and I don't want any lumps in it. So just get it to a boil, and then once it starts boiling, we're going to boil for 1 minute. Oh, it smells wonderful. And I do suggest you use a larger pot than you think you need, just because if it starts to boil over, it's much better if you've got a deeper pot. Now you can see it's starting to come to a boil, and what I'm looking for is a boil that I can't stir down. And that's where we're at. Now we start 1 minute. And we want a vigorous boil. So you don't leave this for a second. You make sure that you're stirring, stirring, stirring. And if you have to, if your pot isn't big enough, pull it off the heat for just a second. Let it subside before you boil over. Okay, that's 1 minute. And I've turned off my heat. Now I'm going to let this sit. I'm going to move it off this hot burner, and I'm going to let it sit undisturbed for 5 minutes. And then I'll bring you back. Alright, I let it sit undisturbed for 5 minutes, and you're supposed to skim off any foam, and there's very little, just a tiny bit around the edges. And also look for any seeds that you might have missed, but you know what, I'm not seeing any. Now at this point, you can put this in heat-proof storage containers and let it cool to room temperature, and then you can refrigerate it up to a month. I'm not going to do that. I am going to can it, so I've got my water bath canner getting pretty warm. I've got my jars in there staying warm. So now I'm going to fill the jars and leave 1/2 inch headspace. Now you want to stir it because the solids get kind of concentrated, and there is one seed. So we're going to take that out, and boy, that's hot. Okay. All right, let's check our headspace. Nope, we still need a little bit more. There we go. And we're at 1/2 inch of headspace. And I'm going to go ahead and debubble. This is pretty liquid, so I don't think that's an issue. we're going to clean the rim. Put on a warm lid. And finger tight. And then I'm going to put this in the canner. Just taking a tag along there. I'm going to put that in the canner and do the rest. And isn't that pretty? It's just beautiful. Alright, so I'm going to get the rest of these jars done and in the canner. Alright, so I have water bath canned these jars for 10 minutes plus for my altitude an additional 10 minutes. So I have processed them for a total of 20 minutes for my high altitude. And isn't that gorgeous? The pink. And I have a total of 7 half pints. And I also had about another 3/4 of a half pint jar. So probably another 6 ounces that I just put in the refrigerator for us to use. But these just turned out absolutely beautiful. And we tasted it and oh my gosh, it is so good. I would say that if you like a softer zest, the peel, that maybe cook it just a little bit longer. We like it more chewy, and that's the way mine turned out. So just a heads up, if you like it a little more tender, falling apart kind of, then I would cook it a little bit more before you put the pectin in. But for me, this is like having sunshine in a jar. And it is just so good. So, you know what? I hope you give this a try. It's some prep work. But once you get the prep work done, it's actually very simple after that. And none of it's hard. It just takes a little bit of time. So, anyway, Ping, I hope you give this a try. And I want to thank you for visiting Vickie's Country Home, and we'll talk again soon.